Scares and screams and things unseen. It's the Scare Factor Podcast, Season 3.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Scare Factor Podcast, Season 3. Yes, it's the inaugural episode. My name is Bryan of Team Skelligore in Central New York. I'm joined this week by Tiphennie of Team Terror Techies, based in Seattle, Washington. Tiphennie, how's it going? Is it raining?
It just started raining only because you were planning on recording this podcast. It has been sunny, and you said the word podcast, and it literally started raining.
For the listeners playing at home, in our Discord, we uploaded like team logos as emojis that we can use to react and whatever. And so the code that I created for Team Terror Techies is just rain. And Tiphennie was less than pleased with me when she discovered that.
It's sad. There were tears. I won't lie. Everybody else had like their names and it was like all cool. And mine was like rain. I'm like, cool.
I think it's a fun Easter egg. So this week, to kick off the season, we are talking about lights out events. Are they worth the effort? Are they worth the time and the money and the effort to go? Like, what do you think, Tiphennie?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of kind of different angles to like consider with lights out events. I've been to quite a few of them, I believe. Mostly because it was the only time that I could actually go to haunted houses, being busy most of the season. So it gave me, opportunities to try something different, but they are different than what you would experience like during season. I don't really want to talk about too much of what we're going to be going into right now. So yeah, I'll leave it at that.
All right. I personally, I disagree. I disrespectfully disagree. Fuck your opinion.
How dare.
How dare you? So I don't know. I don't think they're worth the effort to put on. I think that for an off-season event, so much more effort could be put in. It seems very lazy to me because, I mean, what's the definition of a lights out event? You just turn the fucking lights off. Well, anybody can do that shit. I could do that at home. Right? And I mean, it's a lot scarier at home because like I have a kid that likes to play with Legos. So it's a minefield here, guys. It just, I don't know. It seems like it's such a low effort money grab to me that, cause I mean, what do you really get out of it? You get some jump scares. You can't do much with what you would normally see in a haunt, right? It's, the lighting and the props and all that stuff. It's just, you're just kind of feeling your way through a maze and like, there's a guy there. And then you walk out of the exit. So I don't know. We'll get into it though. So, I mean, I just defined a lights out event, right? Lights are off. That's it.
It's a little bit more complex than that.
Yeah.
Is that a lights out or a blackout event is basically where a haunted house turns the lights off, but sometimes they have different things going on. So sometimes it has actors, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes they give you a flashlight or a glow stick, sometimes they don't. Sometimes with like the lights, it's more of like half lit. And so you're not actually in pitch darkness. Other times it is pitch darkness. So there's different kind of, depending on what the haunt actually puts on.
Okay.
There's kind of like different flavors of what their lights out event is.
Okay. All right. I was going to say that's exactly what I said, but then you extrapolated on that. You expanded.
I grew on it. Yes.
Yeah. Wow. Look at you contributing to the conversation. This is fantastic. Yeah. So, I mean, like my experience with lights out events has just been turn the lights off. Here's a glow stick. Have fun. And it just, I don't know. It always felt kind of cheap to me. So I asked ChatGPT what a lights out event is, right? I wanted an unbiased, uninformed opinion on this. And so ChatGPT tells me a lights out event at a haunted house is when organizers of the haunted house turn off all the lights, leaving visitors in complete darkness. This is often done to increase the level of fear and suspense experienced by visitors, as it makes it more difficult for them to anticipate what might happen next or where the scare actors may be hiding. Visitors may be given a small flashlight or glow stick to help them navigate the darkened environment. but otherwise, they are left to fend for themselves in the haunted house's spooky setting. Okay, so we're done asking ChatGPT. Yeah, I don't know. It kind of hits the nail on the head, right? Lights are off. You're in the dark. Here's the glow stick. Have fun. I don't think it's that much scarier, but I'm also not afraid of the dark, right? Like as a haunt actor, my hiding spot between groups was in complete blackness. So I feel very much at home in that sort of scenario. Now, for somebody who was not a haunt actor hiding in pitch black all night, I could see how being in the dark for an extended period of time with people jumping out at you may be a little unnerving.
Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree, but like it's kind of, I've been in some blackout events where it feels very claustrophobic.
Okay.
Only because of just, again, it's really, really dark. You don't really know how close things are around you. And I'm not afraid of the dark normally, but if you put me in like this very tepid, like warm-ish room, and it's almost pitch black where I can't see like my hand in front of my face, like it is like I feel like enclosed. And so it feels like the air is like marmalade and like kind of like these different things. And like I said, normally if you go ahead and put me in a dark room, I have no issues whatsoever. Again, same thing of previously being a scare actor. Like, yeah, your hiding holes are black boxes. And so it's just like, it's a really weird feeling. And it's also like really hard for me to describe, but I could see like where that appeal is, because for me, that's kind of like the most terrifying thing, because it's hitting like claustrophobia. It's hitting like you don't know what's going to come after you. And so that like increased like anxiety and anticipation, like I could see it. I could definitely see it.
Okay. So we've already hit on a couple of the pros and some of the cons here, but let's talk about that a little bit more, right? So like you know, we both kind of said this where you have an increased fear factor, right? It's or I guess to say on brand, an increased scare factor. You know, it's this sort of thing where like, yeah, you don't know what's about to happen because you usually can't see much of anything. In the scenarios where like you have this half lit sort of scenario, maybe you can kind of see what's coming. Veterans to visiting haunted houses, I think, are going to be more perceptive to when a scare is going to happen. It's just you gain this intuition of where a good spot might be for an actor. And especially for somebody who was an actor, you'd go, that'd be a great spot, you know. So, but on top of that, like, you know, it's just, again, people who are afraid of the dark, right? You feel a lot more vulnerable in that sort of situation.
I think you also like kind of going into like the fear factor aspect of it is that getting rid of your eyesight, it's kind of a known thing. Getting rid of one sense makes the other senses kind of try to compensate. So it seems like you hear more. Or haunted houses have soundtracks that make all types of noises. But if you take out like the sight and the lighting, all of a sudden you want to listen to every single sound because you're trying to anticipate something like walking up on you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it allows for like a lot more play in that you were saying like jump scares. And yeah, jump scares are mostly kind of what happens in Lights Out event, but it allows like the actors to play more, right? So like instead of being loud and trying to be over all of this like sound of like the haunt, they could play with like whispering. They could play with like getting pretty close to you. They could play, you know, it has that kind of like experience of your personal space bubble because it's absolute pitch black is so much more closer than if the lights were on, because you'd be more aware if the lights were on of like, oh, this actor has been standing next to me, you know, for X amount of time before they actually went ahead and took some action.
Sure.
I mean, they could be really close to you. They could watch you. So again, I could feel it. I could feel that. I felt it, to be quite honest. I felt that like kind of anticipation, like kind of effect to it.
Okay. Yeah, no, I get that. I think another thing is it is a rather unique experience, as we've kind of touched on here, right? It's not quite the same as a regular haunt walkthrough. You do get these unique sorts of scares that are really only possible in this sort of scenario. However, a lot of it is going to be a lot of jump scares and just blah, right there in your face. You never expected it, or at least a lot of people won't expect it. And another thing is too is like it's a new challenge because you could be very familiar with a haunted house, but all of a sudden you turn the lights off and oh, where was that turn again? Where's that corner? And then you put your hand on something soft and squishy and realize that's a person. And
So
that could kind of add to it too, right?
yeah, I think that's like kind of like the weirder thing. I it sounds like you have like a way better experience of like memorizing haunts than I do. Like I
Only certain
honestly
haunts, only certain ones.
okay. Cause like I know for myself, not even just haunts that I like visited and went to, but even haunts that I worked at. I'm still surprised about some of the areas that exist. I could like understand like the general pattern, um, or kind of like know of like, oh, this is where they had things, particularly if it's haunted houses that go each like year after year after year. But I don't ever feel like I know exactly where things are. So attending a haunt, like say during regular season when the lights are up, and then attending that same haunt like when the lights are off, I can't even think about like, oh, there's a turn here. I'm just it's might as well be like a whole new area for me.
Yeah,
Um
and I think for me, like understanding where those turns are and where corners might be, that's I'm thinking more like a haunt that I've worked in, right? Like I know that like, oh, I'm coming up to the end of a hallway and I have to turn, but figuring out where the end of that hallway is.
oh yeah.
That sort of thing, I can't just go to a haunt one time and go, oh yeah, okay, so you take a left and a right and then you're in this room and oh, it's great. And then this guy was there and he did this thing. No, I
I
can't
mean,
remember that
unless if
shit.
it's like a straight walkthrough, right?
Yeah.
Like just straight through a
It's
trailer.
just a linear haunt.
Right.
That's
But
that's a
yeah.
that's a whole other thing.
That's another episode completely.
Yeah. And the last thing too that we've hit the nail on the head here, it's great for the off season. Because it is a sort of like making you think about hunt season again, perhaps in like February or March, although like you have seasonal events or whatever, but it's it really does kind of get you back into the mood outside of October.
Yeah, and I've seen it both having like lights out events preseason and then also postseason, particularly if Halloween is like midweek. Um that's kind of when I mostly see them the most. And I have theories. I have a lot of theories as into like why that is. Um but yeah, it seems to like either be a prep of like, okay, gearing up for season, like what you were saying, Brian. But then also, after Halloween, it's really hard, at least out here on the West Coast, it's really hard to get people like excited about like, oh yes, it's November 1st. Come on, it's still Halloween season. Like people are like, nope, past October 31st, it's November 1st. I'm ready for Christmas.
And I'll be honest with you, like I'm guilty of that, right? Like after Halloween, after the actual date of Halloween, I find it very hard to really stay in the mood, right? It's kind of like, yeah, all right, that was fun, but it's over now. We need to think about Thanksgiving and wasting all of my money.
Yeah, I'm not that person. Like I'm the like not I wanted to say like youthful. That's not really accurate, but I'm like the like I don't know, the hardcore like Halloween is year round type of person, and so like I want to hold on to it as long as possible. And any way that you can make that happen, I'm for it. Like I really want these events.
I joined a Facebook group for like Halloween and haunted house props and people who make them. And I thought, oh, this would be cool because I'm always looking at new things that I could, maybe build to put in the yard for October or whatever. And I'll tell you something, these people need like medical help, okay? There's people who are taking the 12-foot Home Depot skeletons and putting fucking bunny ears on them, all right?
Oh, so um, there's
Y'all
a
need some
12
goddamn
foot.
help.
So there's a 12-foot skeleton next door that I love. Yeah, because the 12-foot skeleton gets dressed for every single month and holiday, and it's the most adorable thing. Like, I'm all for it. It's fun going outside, seeing what the skeleton's dressed up as. Come on now.
I will agree, it is kind of fun and whimsical, and it's like, yeah, hold on to that, right? Because it's, I think the more we forget about Halloween outside of October, the less the more it kind of disappears in October, right?
Mhm.
Thanks in no small part to the Catholic Church trying to put a stop to the fun of Halloween. But that's a whole other thing. We're not going to get into that. Have I mentioned this is the Bryan Show now? Oh boy, get ready for some fucking opinions, folks. You better strap on for this one.
I'm trying to be the counter, like the voice of reason and logic, and rein Bryan in. I will fail
You
because
said rain.
I, like we're more than 2,000 miles away from each other. Like, there's just sometimes I want to be in the same room just to give you glares. Like, you need to feel my, the Seattle freeze disappointment right now.
So how were the last few days weather-wise? Because it got up to like 90 here in upstate New York.
Stop. Yeah, it was sunny. It was sunny and 50 degrees.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yes.
Back on topic.
Yeah.
Back on topic here. So cons, what are some downsides here? And this is more my realm of things. But here's the big thing: safety concerns, right? You're gonna have hard objects. You're gonna have, things that like people would just plainly see in a normally lit haunt that, oh, you're gonna have no idea, right? Trip hazards, hard corners, things like that, and so haunters need to be taking extra care to make sure that those things are no longer a hazard in a lights out event. And it's a lot more than you might think. Think pool noodles on corners and making sure there's no trip hazards. Can you shuffle your feet all the way through and not trip on anything?
Yeah. So, I've talked about it. I worked at a farm haunt, and we would normally hold a blackout or lights out event at the end of season. And again, like I said, I have theories as into I know why it worked for us, but also I could see it like working for other haunts. But for us, all the corn was down from people just like forget any path that we had through the corn. Like, people made their own path. So by the end of season in October, like, there was nothing. Like, everything was ground and down. And so the biggest thing that we had to worry about to go with like safety concerns and stuff was exactly, again, Bryan, what you were saying about shuffling feet. The ground's not even in farm haunts, no matter how much you try, yo. So I meant, not having the lights on in a cornfield, it presents issues. It's kind of, it's one of the things that we always kind of like fought with. And so, we were never like truly like lights out. Like, we had accent lighting in those places where we knew that people could get caught up or run into stuff. So, it's definitely like on like the builder or like the organization side, there is that like kind of like concern. You were talking about haunters and owners and stuff like that. But even like as a patron or a visitor visiting a lights out event in a haunted house, there's this like kind of more of, okay, you have to consider like, are you a runner? Because you probably shouldn't be running absolute in pitch darkness. You kind of have to like evaluate some of that stuff too. Because there always is like a potential of, even if you do pool noodle everything, I've seen people run smack into walls. Like,
Listen, okay, if you know that this is how you're going to react, you deserve whatever comes to you.
so you're saying if you're a runner and you know that's you're a runner and running down,
And you still
'cause you
go
got
to
a pop
this
scare.
event. And you still go to this event. That, like, yeah, you deserve running into the fucking wall because, like, you knew that that's what was going to happen.
I have a story, but I'll wait until a little bit later to tell my story, building anticipation. But it's related to this topic,
Okay.
and being a weird customer patron sometimes. Um, so you could just sit on that.
Okay.
Just know that it's going
All
to
right.
happen.
Okay. Awesome. And you just mentioned the next thing too. Like, there's a potential for anxiety or panic, right? Like, some people don't know how they're going to react. You don't know how everybody is going to react. So you're going to have these scenarios where people are going to run and they're going to take off. They're going to destroy your set. They're going to hurt your actors and knock over everything in their way. And it's you can't plan for all of that. But I think haunts need to consider what the impact is on some people who are going to behave that way, right? It's plan as best as you can there, but again, these are going to be wildly unpredictable.
Yeah, and I kind of see it like even with considering building a haunt and not doing a lights out event, right? I think as like a customer going to a haunt, you do have like a really good understanding of like, okay, this scares me, this scares me, and this scares me. But if you've never experienced like pitch darkness, you might not know that you're absolutely scared of the dark, which sounds like very, I don't know. It sounds like a very like kind of not that like I want to say it's not that serious of a fear, but it sounds like, oh yeah, I'm fine with the dark. Like I'm cool with turning off the lights in my house. But it is different. And so exactly again, to your point, Brian, is like you could have patrons that just don't know that they're afraid of the dark until they're
Sure.
actually in that situation and that first scare. And yeah, I've definitely seen it happen before. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's definitely like fear of the dark, I think, is probably one of the most common fears out there. And like as comfortable as I am sitting in complete blackness, not knowing what's happening 3 feet in front of me, I will say there have been times where I've walked into haunts and, usually that first scene, it could be reasonably dark, although not pitch black, but just that the contrast of coming from the outside where you may have bright spotlights and, just those generator lights. And then you go into a reasonably dark room and you just can't see anything.
Right.
I will say there's been a few times where the haunt has done such a good job of building the ambiance as you're in line and you're getting ready to go in that like I'm a little anxious in that first scene. Like, oh shit, what's gonna happen? Who's gonna jump out at me? What's gonna move?
Right.
I've seen one where the first scene, right as you walked in, the first scene was like a mausoleum, the outside of a mausoleum. So you have those, the statues of the angels, and so one of them was just, foam craft angel statue, and the other one was a person who was painted to look like a statue, and the person moved, and it's a really great scare, because like you can barely see the difference considering
Mhm.
how dark it is in that scene. So yeah, I mean, it definitely adds to the anxiety of going through, even for somebody who is quite comfortable with that scenario.
So one of the things, if you've been listening to this podcast, is pop scares absolutely terrify me. Stop.
She's in the wrong line of business, I'm telling you.
It's not funny. It's a legit fear. Um, but yeah, pop scares terrify me. And I think like one of the haunts that I visited that I could say like this visit, like legitly, I was so scared going in. I was scared throughout the haunt. It was a lights out event, but it was a lights out event for a full contact haunt. So that was like even more, it's weirder, right? Because particularly if it's a no contact haunt, you could like get into this mindset of like, okay, they could get close, but they can't get too close, you know? If it's a full contact haunt, like that one, I literally was like walking through and then I was like picked up and then put back down. And that so terrifying. I'm fine with full contact haunts during the day. Like during regular season, it gets kind of weird later on. Like I said, with like the lights out, because you do have that thing of like not knowing where it is. And I knew from the line that it was going to be a full contact haunt. And I think that's what like really amped up everything, like my anxiety and panic. And yes, so I agree with anxiety and panic, and particularly I think there was a part of it where I froze. So I'm one of those glorious visitors. I'm sorry. Um because I just didn't want to go forward because I knew stuff was going to pop out at me or like I was going to get touched. Like I was not wanting either of them at some point in the haunt, but also very determined to go through the haunt. So I didn't like tap out and ask to be taken out.
Yeah. No, I get that. You know, it adds another layer to it.
Right.
So, and then the other cons here, I think a little more minor of a con here, right? So you're going to have limited accessibility, but in this case, like it's, if you can't go through the regular haunt in a wheelchair, um, I don't think you can go through a lights out in a wheelchair. So this one, while I kind of get it, where it's going to be a little bit harder to navigate with, let's say, a mobility aid, it's, you probably shouldn't be going to a haunt in the first place if you really need, you know, nice, even, flat surfaces to move around on. And that's something that you get told before the start of any haunt, right? It's, look, if you need a wheelchair, this is not the place for you. And the other one too is like in the off season, it's harder to get people to come back, right? Because they go, well, I don't know, I already saw that show. It was okay. I don't know, not really in the mood, right? So it's harder to get people to come back and generate that interest.
And I've definitely seen haunts like kind of market it as like a second event, right? So you're like, you like the staring season, wait until the last weekend.
Yeah.
And I think that, well, I think that is kind of what we were talking about before, is that like extension of like Halloween. So I, as a customer and person, like I love that, right? Because again, Halloween, 365 days a year, I'm just like, yes. But I could also see, again, like what we were talking about, like, nope, it's October 31st, I'm done.
All right, so now that we've talked about the pros and cons, what's a good event look like? You know, this is going to take serious planning to execute it properly and provide a safe yet thrilling experience. So, you know, I think the first thing is going to be clear instructions, right? You should be provided with very clear instructions on what to expect, what to do, what not to do, and how to use any sort of glow sticks or flashlights or anything that's provided, and how to seek help if you really do need it.
Right. I mean, I 100% agree with this. Is you do want those like really clear expectations. It isn't something that you really want to set up and be like, it's the haunt with lights out, and we give you, you know, this thing and go forth. Like planning and clear instructions, even like during season, again, is really good to have as like a visitor to kind of if you want them to like be aware of things, right, as they kind of go through and what expectations are, or what to expect exactly. I mean, I agree with this point 100%.
Absolutely. You know,
in
and
order to have a good
this
event.
I think this is absolutely needed for any sort of haunt that
Right.
you go to, lights out or not. This is, you should have very clear instructions on what to do, what not to do, and what you should expect.
Right.
You know, the next thing is adequate lighting, and it's kind of funny to talk about this because, like, lighting? Do you turn the lights off? And although, like, a majority of it is going to be dark or pitch black, you know, there's going to be some bits of lighting here and there, whether it be ambient light that's coming in from the outside for some reason, or perhaps if you're given a lighting device like a glow stick, you know, The other thing too is like, I've been to a few haunts where on the floor they have glow in the dark tape that kind of points you in the right direction as you're going into pitch black sections. You can still see that tape pretty well. You can have like a UV light that shines on it, lets you know this is the way you go. And the lighting too helps to prevent those trip hazards and some of the more dangerous things that you might encounter just inadvertently.
Yeah, it was a little bit like what I was talking about with the farm haunt, is that there was no way for us to like eliminate all possible trip hazards with the ground being uneven and if you shuffle your feet and stuff like that. So we made sure that we had just that little bit of lighting so people weren't running into things, or like it'd be safe in areas that would be safe, that we couldn't necessarily guarantee that would be safe. Again, being outside, it's a whole different game.
Yeah. No, I totally get that. And I think on top of that too, and this is going to go for any sort of haunt event, be it regular season or off season, whatever, you got to have some amenities available for your customers, right? You got to have the porta potties. You got to have some food and beverage available, maybe some merchandise that people can pay for. I survived the scariest blackout haunt of 2023. It's probably not the scariest. We're going to get into that in a different episode, but trust me, you're never the scariest. If you have to say you are, you're not. But, just having those things available makes customers feel like they want to stay a little bit longer. They're going to spend more money with you. And it's going to help you as a business just in the long run. And then last thing too is, if there are glow sticks or little flashlights or anything like that, maybe visitors should be given the option to use them. Although sometimes it doesn't really work out by giving them the option, right? You're going to have some people who absolutely refuse, like me, or you're going to have people who will shine it in the eyes of actors. That could go sideways really quick. So that one is going to take some really, some good finessing to make that work really well.
So lighting devices is really hard for me, mostly because I've seen anything from like no lights to being allowed to use like your phone light, having a finger light, and then also having a glow stick. And so depending on like the range of it, some of it I don't ever think that you actually need your flashlight to go ahead like off your phone. Like to me, that's too much light.
Oh, no, that's way too much. I'm thinking like, the flashlights like you might be given in an escape room, right? Where they can control based on where you are geographically in the house, whether it works or not.
I have never seen that.
Oh, you've never seen those?
So cool.
They are amazing. Yeah, they're super cool. So when you walk into a room, there's sensors built into the room that send a signal to the flashlight, and it says, yeah, you can work, right? You work at full power. You're a regular flashlight. And then when you leave the room, maybe it starts to flicker or it just cuts out entirely, whatever the case may be. But yeah, they're really neat. And I've only seen them once or twice being used, but
yeah,
awesome prop to have.
I've never seen that. The only time that I've had a flashlight flicker, like in an escape room kind of scenario, is when it had a bad battery. The battery was dying. Had nothing to do with sensors. It was just my flashlight was dying.
So speaking of lighting devices and glow sticks, should you toss them out just immediately? I say yes. You're a strong, independent haunt goer, and you don't need no glow stick. Besides, glow sticks are for wimps that can't handle true darkness and need a little nightlight. Some haunts may require you to hang on to them, though. In that case, just like shove it in your pants or something. I don't know.
So I'm not as opinionated as Bryan.
You're on the wrong podcast, then.
I know. Particularly since I'm supposed to be a counterbalance, right? Like, I'm just not. I don't think if you have a light like that makes you a wimp or not. I just know, for example, like things like glow sticks. It can be something reassuring for like the visitor and the customers coming through. However, it makes you a really easy target for pop scares. Like,
oh, absolutely. That's why I say
you're just going through.
That's why I say throw it out, right? Because then you can get you can get an ambush on the actors. And I know it's bad form. It's happened to me once or twice as an actor, but my God, is it just so much fun to get a good scare on an actor.
But see, I really like. Okay, so I do not like pop scares. Like, they actually scare me. However, if I get a lot of them at once, like, I like that. Like, don't ask me why. It's the same thing of being scared. So I kind of like that being like a little beacon of attack.
So what you're saying is you much prefer to be gangbanged by jump scares.
Didn't say that. I need to have like a buzzer to filter you. Oh, this is going to be harder than I thought.
I know what the teaser for this week is going to be.
Stop. I don't mind a lot of actors or the same actor hitting me multiple times with a lot of pop scares. I'm going to word it exactly like that.
Oh, man. Oh, that's good. Oh, my God. So I'm sure you've seen this too, and I've seen this a few times. Actors will just collect glow sticks for fun. Like, you'll come up and they'll be like, hey, that's cool. Let me see that real quick. And then they just push you away. Goodbye. You don't need this anymore.
Yeah, I've definitely seen that a lot. That's also the other thing, having like being on the actor side of it. I was that actor that we kind of had a competition on how many glow sticks / finger lights we could collect off of people. Yeah, it was fun for us. It was highly entertaining. But yeah, it was just one of those things that I don't know, like it added something, but I've like what you were saying, Brian, like I've had actors take away like my glow stick and stuff from me, and it adds something to it. It's just a really fun interaction and being like, wait, no, don't leave me in pitch darkness with all these people that are going to pop out at me, you know, like
yeah,
you get that.
It takes away that last layer of security that you feel like you have.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, I get that. So how can this go sideways, right? There's a lot of ways that this can go wrong. As we've harped on already, safety hazards, trip hazards. People are going to run. They're going to collide with things and people, and it's not going to turn out well, you know? So it helps to kind of plan ahead for those things. Like I've said, you know, maybe like a low half wall may prevent an issue, or it could provide a benefit to you in some circumstances.
So this is where I wanted to go ahead and tell my story. Again, I am not the best haunted house visitor. I'm kind of very klutzy. And I was at a Blackout event, and normally my MO, like I'm not a runner, but normally my MO is just to go in like a straight direction, and haunts are never like that, right? So I've ran into a lot of walls. There was this one haunt that I was in that had all these like really low half walls, and I was doing that kind of going at a decently pushing pace, and I flipped over the half wall. Yeah, because it was right there. It wasn't like high enough to like actually stop me. It was just enough to take out my legs.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's no, that could be pretty entertaining actually.
It is, but then, you know, like if the person doesn't fall correctly, there's a lot. You don't want your patrons falling over walls necessarily, but
just put a crash pad on the other side. It'll be fine.
Oh yeah, like if it's like a bouncy pad. Trampoline.
Yeah, no, it'll be fine. Like it'll be great. Just bring them into the next scene. They'll have no idea what hit them. Yeah. You know, that kind of goes hand in hand with the overwhelming anxiety that some patrons could experience, right? You're in complete darkness. Let's say you don't know that you're afraid of the dark, and now you're in the middle of a place that's trying very hard to catch you off guard and scare you, and probably succeeding at that. And you're in pitch black. What are you going to do? This could be dangerous for some people, right? You know, having places where people can kind of rest and collect themselves where they're not dealing with other actors outside of the haunt could be a good thing to have here.
I think having like escape plans, so it goes back to that first one of like what makes an event really good is that like planning and instructions. Like, what do you want your visitors to do when they're tapping out? Like,
Sure, yeah. Explaining
them
that
know.
clearly at the very
Yeah.
beginning. Like, if you need to exit for any reason whatsoever, here's what you need to look for to get out. And in most places, you're going to see the lit up exit signs over the doors and all that. And, it's you'll figure it out pretty quickly. But yeah, having that knowledge before you go in can be very helpful there because some people are going to absolutely break down.
I 100% agree. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the flip side of people getting overly anxious is you could just have some ineffective scares. Some people have scares that rely too much on the visual nature of it. And, well, when you can't see anything, all of a sudden that scare is just not going to work. I'm thinking, a puppet that kind of comes out of nowhere. Maybe it's on a rail or something. And I mean, if you can't see it, you can't see it. It's not doing much for me. It doesn't turn me on anymore.
Right. And we've even talked about it, like talking about in other episodes, talking about haunts and stuff of you don't necessarily want that black box haunt, right?
Right.
That's just a dark room with nothing happening. And there is that kind of like potential if you have a whole bunch of actors that are like lurkers and they want to do all these lurk scares, they're not going to get anyone unless if they start getting like really, really close to the customers and visitors that are going through. With like the actors, I think it also takes like a special type of scare actor. So I've seen lights out events being able to be put on by less actors than they would have normally during season. But the actors that you do have on, you want to make sure that they are like high energy, could hit a group like multiple times. The less actors that you have, the more that they have to be able to move and be energetic and be loud and be really good at timing. And it takes a special kind of cast, to be quite honest.
It really does, yeah.
Yeah.
And not only that, but you need to have a cast that has more veteran actors than new actors because you need people who can effectively move in between scenes, without being seen. So, new actors may not realize that if they go behind the scene, they're going to come out into the next one that's, in a completely different part of the house.
Right.
So having those veteran actors who know the ins and outs and the secret passageways and all that stuff, for Harry Potter fans, you basically need a cast full of the Weasley twins. And I know opinions are high about Harry Potter right now. I'm not getting into it. Listen, Hogwarts Legacy is a fantastic game. I've put like 40 hours into it in a week. All right. It's a full-time job for me now. But yeah, it's like you definitely need those actors though who know where to go and how to get to places a lot faster than a patron would, right? You can't have actors going through the main passageways and and not only that, but like having the actors who learn very quickly what's going to work on a group and having the tools to try different things when some things just don't work.
Yeah. And again, it's really hard, right? So this is where kind of scares could be ineffective is that you honestly do not have a lot of options when it comes to scares. Like you could go ahead, everything has to kind of have a noise or you have to like have your presence be there. So you either have to get closer to the patrons and customers that honestly put actors into kind of a little risk. And then it has to be like the sound, it has to be really quick and disappear into the darkness type of thing. But I mean, if you think of like all the multitude of scares and the possibility of them, it really pares that down, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So I could totally see like how it'll be a lot, like it'll be really difficult as an actor to like what you were talking about is adapting and it's like, okay, this thing doesn't work with this group. What else can we possibly do with this group? And
right.
Yeah, it's really hard.
Yeah. And especially if you don't have those tools, then like, well, I've tried everything, right? We tried nothing and I'm all out of ideas. Well,
right.
Yeah, because you tried nothing, It's yeah. So having those actors that can try multiple different things, that know how to really get at the core of it, is going to be
Right.
very helpful. Well, I think that's all of our talking points. Tiffany, did you have anything else to add?
No, my opinion from earlier on and still the same. I honestly do think lights out events does have its merit. Knowing all of this stuff, because to me it's a different experience. It goes ahead and expands on Halloween being year round. I disagree with Bryan.
That's okay. Everybody does.
I have
I
an
don't know.
opinion.
Hooray! Yeah, I don't know. I think that, if it's executed well, it can be a pretty good show. It can be a fun event. It's just not been my experience to, visit events that are done very well.
Yeah. I'll let you have that one. You're allowed to have that.
I'm allowed that one. Thank you so much for allowing
Yes.
me to have my own opinion. All right, that's all we've got for this week. Remember, if you're new here, click on the subscribe button. I'm not really sure where it is because you're probably all on different platforms. If you're on Spotify, click the button that says subscribe or follow or something. I don't know. I don't fucking use Spotify anymore. Something about Joe Rogan. I don't really remember anymore.
Yeah.
If you're on Tidal, we're not there, so I don't know how you're listening to this if you're on Tidal. On all the other ones, just look for a button that says subscribe somewhere. Remember to leave comments berating me for my idiotic opinions. Praise Tiffany for having opinions that differ from mine. And if you head over to www.thescarefactor.com, you can visit our merchandise store. You can buy all sorts of fun things. You can get a onesie for your baby that's got the Team Skelligor logo on it. Wouldn't that be fun? I think that'd be a lot of fun. You can get the Team Terror Techies logo on a onesie, or you could get it on a pair of socks, I think. I don't know.
You actually made your logo a lot more cuter, though.
I
could see that
did.
be on a onesie.
I did. It's actually my my avatar on Teams at work now, and it's just it's fantastic. My background on my PC is Cookie Monster, and there's a caption that says, "Where the fuck are my cookies?" Yeah,
To the form. I would not expect anything else.
Yeah, I it's fun. I stopped giving a shit. As if I did in the first place. Yeah, you can buy all sorts of stuff with all the team logos on it there in the merch store, and don't forget to follow us on social media at The Scare Factor, and make sure you go ahead and read our reviews over on www.thescarefactor.com. Sorry, Tyler's not here. I had to do it at least once. And yeah, I mean, he'll be proud of me, right?
No, he will not. He will not.
Tyler, will you ever be proud of me? Tyler, you're listening to this in post. Are you proud of me? Please. My dad's not proud of me. I need validation in my life. All right, well, I'm rambling now, so do the social media, do the thing in the doobly-doo, click like, subscribe, all that stuff. And until next time, stay scary.
I don't know what to do with you.